So TYT did a video this week about Joe Rogan responding to Ben Shapiro's comments on Kaepernick, and I wanted to play a clip because I actually thought their coverage of it was okay, but Cenk says something during it that I think is kind of odd. So I'll play the clip and I'll give my commentary.
I have a funny theory, which I'm sure isn't true. So let's share it anyway, which is that Joe hasn't had me on his show in what, 5-6 years or so, because I think he's afraid that if he has me on the show, that he won't invite any more right wingers, which kills like half of his guests. So we're clearly right. We're clearly right on all these issues, and I think that he, in the back of his mind, knows that. And so, but then what are you gonna do? He's had all these like Ben Shapiro and Sam Harris and Dave Rubin and all these guys on a billion times, right? And so what is he gonna do? Disavow all of them when he realizes we're right about almost every single position? So he's kind of put himself in a tough spot there. But I've said from day one, and even in the times that he had those guests come on and totally lie about me, that I think Rogan is actually a good guy. And it's kind of a funny thing to say. And he said a lot of bad things, I know that. But I think that you could talk him out of those positions. And I don't think I'm naive for thinking that. And he shows it from time to time. He showed it with Rubin in the post office. He shows it here with Shapiro and Colin Kaepernick. But the problem sometimes with guys like Rogan is that if it doesn't happen to them, it didn't happen, right? That's why he said, if you noticed, oh, he had a gun pulled on him by the cops, so that's fair. No, but look, I've never had a gun pulled on me by the cops, but I could empathize with other people who have. But for guys like Rogan, they're like, oh, if it happened to you, okay, then I get it, that why you're mad. But if you're just looking out for other people, that seems kind of weird, right? So I'm sure he wouldn't put it that way. But let me get to the biggest culprit. That's the media. Because Rogan knows more about politics, way more about politics than the average bear does, right? So you say, well, it's not his job and he doesn't know that as much. Yeah, I hear you on that. But he knows way more than a normal citizen does. Normal citizens never heard that Kaepernick talked to a veteran and actually did it in a respectful way. They do if they watch the Young Turks, they watch other progressive shows, but the mainstream media never tells them that. Every time they cover the story, they make it sound like Kaepernick hates the flag, hates the troops, and they move on. So Shapiro can lie in his little dark cave that he's got somewhere and have a couple of dudes believe him. But it's really the mainstream media, by not reporting the actual facts and context of it, that smeared Kaepernick and never corrected it. If you notice, he said that back in 2016. And yet if you did a poll to average American right now and asked them, they like 90% of them would not know that. And most people would think that Kaepernick was trying to insult the troops, because that's all they've ever heard.
So I'm a fair person. I actually went through and counted the names, or rather the appearances of the 3 people he mentioned. Rogan has had Shapiro on his show 3 times. He's had Sam Harris on 5 times. And he's had Dave Rubin on 3 times. I went through and looked on the, the search thing on the channel where you type the person's name and then you can get it. So I do actually think he has a point in that it probably is justifiable to say Cenk should be on there again. And listen, even if you don't like him, if you're part of the group that, hates TYT, you gotta understand that the reason this point of like him not having an appearance feels kind of ridiculous is that it has been over 6 years since he was on that show. And all of these other people have appeared multiple times by this point. So I think he should have been back on now at least twice. But that being said, when I hear a comment like, oh, they know we're right. Sometimes when you talk to people, when you're an interviewer or you speak to people who might have a differing view than you can understand the points they're making while also not agreeing with all of what they're saying. This is done by the news all the time. People say the supposedly liberal mainstream media, which I actually think is more conservative in terms of economics, and then they're liberal on social issues. But they have Republicans on all the time. They have Democrats, and it doesn't seem like they're afraid to talk to these people just because they have a difference of opinion with them. But I guess what most disturbs me about Cenk's claim is that he asserts that if he came on, this would somehow, according to whatever Rogan is thinking by not bringing him on, hurt Rogan's, I guess, perception among conservatives. And I'm like, well, hell, he brought you on once before and he seems to be doing pretty fine. At this point, it's not like we can't still access Cenk's appearance on there. But also, it's like he'll have someone like Kyle Kalinske, like Jimmy Dore, hell, like Bernie on his show, who are all just as famous, in Bernie's case, even more famous, eons more famous. And that's not a shot at Cenk, because politicians tend to be more famous than political commentators for at least like the ones that have ran for president anyway. But you'll really sit here and think he'll have all those different famous political individuals, whether they're politicians or commentators of the same ideology as Cenk, progressives, but he'll let them on, but not you. And he's not letting you on because he's scared of progressives, but lets progressives on who he's supposed to be scared of and not letting on because of their ideology. I think what this is basically Cenk trying to rationalize not appearing on there multiple times like all the other big commentators. And it's even more funny when you consider that he's like, I think in Rogan's head, he knows in the back of his head that we're correct. Like, how do you know what he's thinking? Like, if he's never been asked or said, this is why I won't let you on my show anymore, which I don't even think he's not purposely letting him on the show. I think he just has his hands filled with other people. How does he know what Rogan is thinking? This was actually something I talked about on my stream earlier today, where it's like people have this desire where they're trying to get in someone's head, or they're trying to figure someone out, which isn't the worst thing in the world. But when you try to say this person thinks this without them specifically stating or giving you any evidence to support that, I don't like it. Anyways, I don't think Rogan is cowardly or hiding from anybody. I don't think he believes he'd lose his conservative audience, especially if he has liberal people on there, just because Cenk makes an appearance. And this really sucks because I actually enjoyed most of that video, but it was just, God, they always have to say something that is either incorrect or conspiratorial. I mean, I'm good, Some stuff just isn't that drawn out and methodical. You cannot have someone on your show going, oh my God, if he comes on, all these Republicans that watch me are going to go and say, to hell with me. Must avoid Cenk like the plague. Hey, Cenk is the new virus. Confirmed with proof.